Hello.
Hello and good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Movies with Moira and Shannon. Moira, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Moira and I'm from TACA, the Autism Community in Action. And I love movies and I love talking about them with Shannon.
And I'm Shannon Penrod, and I love talking about these movies and television shows and other things with Moira. This is sort of the highlight of my month. And I always look forward to it when we get a chance to talk about things. And I'm so excited to talk about some of the movies that we have going on today. But I guess I got to start first, Moira, and ask you if you have any updates for us from the fabulous Taka, because I know you guys just had a conference and you've
We
had a lot going on.
We've had a lot. It's been a busy time for us. We did our conference and it was successful, and I think a lot of people learned a lot of stuff. We're getting surveys in. If you attended the conference, please do the survey. We want to hear your feedback. The recorded sessions are still available for purchase, and they will be up in the platform that we use from November 21st till January 21st of 2023. So you will have plenty of time to watch the recorded sessions. The PowerPoint slides are in there. I mean, it's a really great way for folks that maybe couldn't make it, or you can't go to every single session, or you may want to watch one again because there's so
Yeah.
much information. So yeah, good stuff.
So where would they go, Moira, if they want to now purchase the watching the videos?
On the Taka website, there's a Taka conference pull down menu, and actually, it might even be one of the scrolling banners. And you can click through that, and there's a little button for purchase the recorded sessions. So, and it's 50
Fantastic.
bucks. Bargain.
That's really amazing, you guys. So take advantage of that if you will. We had some people earlier in the week talking about the fact that they got to go to the conference, and one person in particular said it was their first time ever going to any conference anywhere, which I thought,
Oh,
wow, what an amazing thing. And she said she learned so much, Moira. So
oh, that
thank you
warms my
guys for
heart.
doing such a good, yeah. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So $50 to be able to have over 2 months, it's really 3 months, right?
Yeah,
Of
November, December. Yep.
yep. Listening and watching those videos and picking and choosing what you wanna watch again, it's pretty amazing, you guys, really, really good deal. And then, I know you guys have your Sensitive Santa coming up in December, because you just
That's
since we last met, you had your conference, you had your ante up poker tournament thing, which we went to and was just amazing, and you had your family fall festival fun. You guys have been busy.
We've been very busy. I know it's kind of always a crazy time for us, the fall, and but yes, we have our Sensitive Santa event, and really just keep checking the website. There's a lot of virtual content that's available. There are events and activities happening all over. I mean, just see if there's something near you. If there's not something near you, like I said, the virtual offerings are terrific, and we have always feature a monthly topic with pre-recorded sessions on that particular topic, and I actually forgot to check what that topic was because I was so like exhausted from this weekend. But that is a fabulous way to learn while you're sitting at home, or maybe sitting in a waiting room and you're watching something on your phone,
Mhm.
right? I mean, we're all
Absolutely.
stuck in waiting rooms, right?
I say
Yeah.
put them on when you're going to bed and laying down, and if nothing else, if it relaxes you enough that you can go to sleep, use it as a meditation to go to sleep to. I always want you remember the old stories about Edgar Casey that he could put a book underneath his pillow and go to sleep and he would wake up and supposedly know everything under the book. Sometimes I will sleep to things that I need to know, and I sort of have this waking memory of some of the things. It's not efficient, but it's not the worst thing
Hmm.
either.
Right.
I also am I allowed to say congratulations and celebrate
Of
warmly
course.
for you guys that it's your wedding anniversary?
Yes, yeah, 30 years. Like I said, I picked the right guy. I'm lucky. Or actually, he picked me. He knew first that we were meant to be
Smart
together.
guy.
It took me a little while, but yeah, 30 years, and we're gonna, just to celebrate that. It was actually last
Mhm.
week, but with the conference, it's like, I want to be able to
Well,
relax, and I will,
absolutely amazing.
yeah.
We are so happy for you guys, and I'm glad that you're okay with sharing it because I think people need to know it's not everybody's story, but it
Hmm.
can happen,
Yeah.
and that there is this myth out there that marriages can't survive when you have uniquely abled children.
Hmm.
I think that there are many marriages that survive and many marriages that don't. No judgment on
Hmm.
anybody. You do the best that you can with what you have. But if you're lucky
Hmm.
like Moira and like I am and you marry the right person, there are lots of
Hmm.
marriages that not only survive but thrive through this process. But you got to have
Yep.
both people keyed in. I think that's the
Yeah.
key.
Yeah. Being on
Yeah.
the same page, playing to your
Yeah.
strengths. That's definitely something we
Yeah.
did. Divide and conquer. Whatever
Yeah.
things that you're better focused at, you take point. That's kind of the way we viewed it.
And
Teamwork.
you guys you used to do talks about this, and it was one of the things that helped my husband and I,
Did it?
was
Oh.
it really did because I always quote you and say, because you talked about, somebody has to be the project manager, and it can't be
Mm,
both of you.
mhm,
And because I was getting into the resentment about why am I the person that's doing all the
mhm,
research on this? And then you said, no, somebody has to be the project manager, and it's your job to convey it back to the other
mhm.
person while they're out making sure that there's enough, so that you keep a roof over your head. And
Right.
that all of a sudden that made more sense to me. And I came not from a place of resentment, but from being about part of my job is to communicate what he needs to know. And
Mhm.
then, and I sometimes, I would come to him and I would say, "Here's what I think we should do. Here's why. Here's what I researched. Here was this, that, and the other thing."
Mm.
And sometimes he would go, "Well, I'm not sure." And I would go, "Well, then I've done all my research. If you want to do more research, you go ahead and do that." And he'd go, "No, if you're good."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I was like, no, I did the research. If you're going to take
Right.
my point of view, or you're going to go do more research on your own.
Right.
But it helped us. It really helped us, Moira.
Oh,
So
I'm glad. And
we're
and
only
it's
we're 20
delegating.
years in.
Woo!
So, and that's
Yeah.
good. But you're 30. You got 10
Yeah.
years on us.
Yeah.
It's amazing,
30 years. It's weird. It's weird to think that, it seems
right?
like yesterday and seems like a million years ago. It's both,
Yeah.
But
Yes,
yeah,
I
crazy
understand what you
stuff.
mean. But
Mm.
congratulations from all of us, and
Thank
thanks for
you.
being a good example. So, it's time now for us to talk about what we have been watching, and,
Mhm.
and perhaps you guys can be writing in and telling us right now. We did pre-record this, but I'm watching with you live. You can write in and talk about some of the things that you're watching. We are taking requests,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
we've had people that have asked for us to watch certain things, and we even added a new category because somebody asked. So feel free to write in. But every month we like to start with something that we both have seen, so you can kind of, a lot of times we're comparing different things, but there's at least one thing that we have both seen. And I have to say, this was a little bit on my radar, and then you suggested, and I said, yes, okay, I will watch that. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So do you want to wade in first, Moira?
I will. I think we're going to agree on this.
Mm,
I I this we watched Blonde, which is of course about Marilyn Monroe, but I'm going to say up front, this is not a biopic. This is not a biopic. This is based on a novel. It's a fictional account, and it's by Joyce Carol Oates, and Anna de Armas plays Marilyn Monroe, and she is stunning and amazing in this role. However, that she is not given anything but hysterical, fragile Marilyn to play, and it seemed to me that Joyce Carol Oates and perhaps the director Andrew Dominic didn't really like Marilyn Monroe very much. I mean, I felt like, wow, it's just, like I said, it's a very one note portrayal. And it was, to me, as exploitative as those in Hollywood who exploited Marilyn to begin with. And I don't know, I guess maybe that was the point. I don't know. But I was, wow, do we need to do this? And it again, because it's a novelization, the person Bobby Cannavale is playing uh Joe DiMaggio, except in the credits he's named ex-athlete,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And I read an article about the director. He also adapted the novel for the screen, Dominic, and he wanted to show childhood trauma, and how, like, having an absent father or mother who ends up, in an asylum, how that would shape you. And then Norma Jean, it would shape you as an adult. So Norma Jean Baker and Marilyn Monroe kind of showed this duality, this split between your public and private life or something, but it wasn't successful because it was only Fragile Norma Jean that we saw. I mean, I read several of Shelley Winter's books. I don't know if she's written two or more, but I know I read at least two of her books about her life in Hollywood. She was a roommate with Marilyn Monroe. They were both kind of being groomed to be the blonde bombshell, and she talked a lot about how smart Marilyn was, and how fragile is, yes, but that's what made her amazing as an actress was her vulnerability, but that she was super smart, and we never got to see that. And then there was this fictitious threesome that she allegedly had with Charlie Chaplin's son and Edward G. Robinson's son, or whatever. That didn't happen. And I was very disappointed, and it was upsetting. And then just the whole, like, abusive, rapey stuff, that I'm like, yeah, I know a lot of that happened to her, but I'm also like, I don't know. I'm just shocked that the writer liked this version, but then I never read the book. So maybe that's what she wanted to show, was how fragile Marilyn was. And it was just very one-sided. And I'm disappointed for Anna de Armas, because I do think she was amazing,
Yeah.
So, but you tell me, what did you think?
I think I'm muted. There we go.
No, I can hear you.
Well, I thought it was trash. I thought it was almost beginning to end trash. And I haven't read the book, so I don't know where it all fell apart, whether the book was trash to begin with, or this male director took the book and said, I'm just going to tell this in a slightly different way. But I thought it was trash. I think with the Me Too movement, we've been trying to move to a different place, and that was it you that was saying to me something about how sometimes, there are things now that are being labeled as anger porn. And
Mhm.
I thought that this was a way to take misogyny. If you're a misogynist and you really just don't have an opportunity to see as much happening in your workplace or whatever, and that it gave you an opportunity. And so I called it misogyny porn, and I was like, oh, it feels kind of like it's double dipping there. But I do think that there is, not to get into another discussion, but I do think that there is some porn that isn't misogynistic, very small amount. But
Mhm.
this was definitely misogynistic, and I felt that it was disgusting, and it left me sick to my stomach. And I felt bad not for Marilyn Monroe, because I felt it was a very unfair depiction of her, but I felt bad for Anna de Armas, because I felt
Mm.
like she was an actress who was really trying to portray someone, but she was given the worst script and the worst direction on the face of the planet. I happen to love Bobby Cannavale. I
Me
love just
too.
about everything he ever does. And when he came in, clearly as Joe DiMaggio, although they're not calling that, and I think they were not calling it that so that they don't get sued,
Mm.
is what is what I think. And because if I was a relative of any of the people who were depicted in the movie, I would be suing them.
Mhm.
But there's a moment in the film where I think the director, there were, one of the other things about the direction of it was constantly like, how clever can I be? And how, I'm shooting through a thing, so you're seeing a lighting effect, so that you can't really see what's happening, and you're seeing a mirror shadow. just over and over and over. And I love it when a director is showing us a different point of view, but if you're doing it for a reason, and we'd be in color in one scene and then we'd be in black and white. But eventually I just got used to the fact that it was a clown car of techniques that we're going to use to show the scene, and none of them have a rhyme or a reason to them, and they're all abusive. But then, and I thought I'd just gotten over it, like you couldn't surprise me anymore. And then we have the scene with Bobby Cannavale, where he gets upset, and oh, this director just loves the fisheye lens. I just want to
Mm.
slap him. I want to slap him into the middle of next week and say, oh, you little small boy who somebody gave a camera to, that should be working somewhere in a Walmart, not, and that discredits working in a Walmart. I just really was turned off, but destroyed the whole storyline with Bobby Cannavale because it turned it into something that reminded me of Yosemite Sam or Wile E. Coyote. It turned it into a cartoon. It just, and I, you know what? I want to cry foul on everyone who worked on that film that you didn't step up and say to this director who does not have enough credits to just go carte blanche on this kind of crap. And it was crap. It was just
Mhm.
crap. I was offended by it. Here's something fun. I once, for an entire year, was part of a company where I shared a dressing room with the third roommate that she
Mm.
was roommates with Marilyn Monroe and Shelley Winters, and I heard stories. And
Oh.
what I walked away from that with was that Marilyn Monroe, she said, hands down, Marilyn Monroe was the smartest person in the room always. And that
Mhm.
Marilyn always had this thing where she was like, watch, I'll turn it on, that she could just
Yeah.
be just plain person, and that she would flip a switch and she'd go watch, and everybody in the room will turn and look at me, that she knew when and
Mhm.
how to use it. And it's funny because the film refers to both of those things at least twice, but it's like the
Mhm.
director didn't even read his own freaking script, because we
Mm.
saw no evidence of it. Just, we saw Arthur Miller, or the person playing
Mhm.
Arthur Miller. And by the
Mhm.
way, what a great cast. What a
Right?
great supporting cast. You had all the right ingredients. I just say, ha put on this director. He
Yep.
should not be allowed to direct again. I went to look at what he'd done before and I hadn't seen any of it. And you know what? I won't. I
Yeah.
won't,
Yeah.
because I've just decided that his stuff is trash. And
It's
that's how I feel
offensive.
about it.
You're right. It was offensive. And I have to say, it's the weirdest thing about how protective um, women and feminists are of Marilyn Monroe, because she was this, she was so many more things, but of course she was presented as this goddess, and this, screen, sex pot. But she was, she was this multifaceted person that was really, it's just tragic. And yeah, I agree with you. Just not my cup of tea.
No, I was so offended, and I just was bleh about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But speaking of bleh, let's go into our different categories of things that we watched. Let's start with you. About what were your things that were a no, and tell us why.
My nopes. Well, I watched Candy, which was a, yes, what surprise. Moira watched another true crime thing. And it's about housewife Candy Montgomery, and she murdered Betty Gore, the wife of Candy's lover. Candy was having an affair with Betty's husband, and this is in 1980. Candy is played by Jessica Biel, and Betty is played by Melanie Linsky. Both ladies are amazing, and I will watch whatever they're in, but I just felt like ultimately it lingered over the gruesomeness of the murder. And I feel like maybe true crime is at an oversaturation point now. I'm not sure. I don't know. I have more to say in my wow category about that, but this was it was bothersome because I think watching the results of the real trial, and I mean the dramatization of the real trial, at least we did get to see the specter of Betty in the background, kind of watching the farce of a trial. And it reminds us that she remains without an advocate. And the epilogue of the story is that Candy in real life has now become a mental health counselor. And I'm like, wow, not that I don't want people to have a redemption, but I felt like there were just so many things about it that I did not understand of why she behaved the way she did. And did not like her it just, yeah, it just sort of left me a little flat. So that was one of my nopes. And then the next one could not get through was The Host, which it's based on another Stephanie Meyer's book. She was the Twilight author, and of course there was the big craze, and I'm not surprised that they went and tried to do this. This was from 2013, so it's older. Um, and none of the Twilight things were particularly good, but they were, I don't know, escapist, whatever. There was a lot of problematic things about them, but my daughter was at that age where everybody was reading them, so of course I read them, and then she went on to read The Host after she'd read Twilight, and I did not read it. But even at 12, my girl was not impressed with The Host. And then I texted her to say I'm watching The Host on HBO or whatever it was, Netflix. And she's like, I got a one-word response. Why? And I'm like, and the answer is, I don't know. And I couldn't even get through it. We got the wonderful Saoirse Ronan, but it's so very, very bad. And the best thing about it were they had these really cool looking sports cars that had a mirror finish that was awesome. That's the only thing I could say. The sports cars were cool, but other than that, it's 25 minutes of my life I will never get back. So that's my noob. And then I was trying, because this is, we're coming up on Halloween. I was trying to find, oh, well, let's look at some scary movies and whatnot. So I watched the trailer for the Babadook, and it was terrifying. And I was like,
Mm.
I know I'm a true crime queen. I love the true crime stuff, but I'm a big scaredy cat. And I watched that trailer and I was like, nope, nope. And it looked amazing. It's just creepy. It was a child in jeopardy, but it was also like, is the child, is there something going on with the child? And the mom's all alone and there's shadows and the light goes off and you see somebody, all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, no, thank you. Not going to watch that. But if that is your thing, it looks like, from the trailer, it looks fabulous, but I wouldn't be able to sleep for a week. So that was like, cannot do that. Not my thing. So that's my
Yeah.
nope category.
And I don't think I could see any of these. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But for my nope category, what's interesting about my nope category is that one of the reasons why they're no's is because I feel like there were things in them that held so much promise, but the delivery of it was so bad that it made it a hard no for me, that I'm telling people not to bother.
Mm.
But the first one is I Used to Be Famous. And I came across this on Netflix and I was so excited to see it. And because I watched the trailer and I saw that it featured a young man who's a drummer, a musician on the spectrum. And I quickly looked up, is this authentic representation? And it was. There's a young man who's neurodiverse and who is a musician and a drummer, and he was picked to play this. And I think it's a relatively small indie film, but you know what, there's a certain class of movie that's out right now that can be wildly successful or fall flat on its face, where somebody who is an artist in their own right says, I have this script either that I wrote or that a friend is going to direct, and they convince a studio to put some money behind it to do it. And it really is meant to showcase that individual. And that's really what I feel about this. And I don't even remember the name of the artist that it's supposed to showcase, but the storyline is that there's this guy. I mean, it has a great hook to it. You really feel like it could go someplace, but it's a guy who was in a boy band and at the top of his career, and we get to see him at the top of his career, and now he is somebody who can't get anything together. He's not paying his rent. He busks on the street and plays, and nobody's interested in what he has to say or what he's singing. But inadvertently, he's on the street and he's trying to play something on his keyboard, and this kid walks up and pulls out drumsticks and starts to play on the bench. and he gets
Mm,
this funky beat going, and they start to improv off of each other, and it's really cool, and they draw a crowd. So
mm,
great, great, wonderful, and now things are going to happen for them. But here's the problem. The script is so bad. Everybody is so trapped in these boxes of that are unimaginative. You're either black or white. There's no gradation of anything, right? And which is just so like freshman. I just wish somebody who knew something about screenwriting had been able to take the screenplay and said, "Here's where we're going to go with this," because I think it could have been great. And the kid was dynamite. The kid was the best thing in the film, but I got to tell you, Moira, that the woman that they had playing his mother, what she was given to work with was so stereotypical about,
mm,
I'm going to protect my kid no matter what, but it was filled with all of this stuff that made no sense. I'm going to protect him no matter what, but I have no idea where he is. He's running the streets of I don't know where they were, London or wherever, and she had no idea where he was half the time, but I'm so protective of him, which I was
mm,
like, that doesn't match up for me. Sorry. And then she allows him to hang out with the guy because things are going to go well, but she keeps saying no, no, because you're going to hurt my son. And it just like, I thought the way it handled that was just so stereotypical and not imaginative and not based in anything that's real. And the real kicker for me is that the lead guy, we're supposed to believe that he was this big boy band star and that he has this career ahead of him as a singer. But when we finally hear him sing, the guy's not good. He doesn't have the chops to pull it off. The kid does. He's the
mm,
only one in the film that has the chops. And I hope that this film doesn't hold him back from doing other roles because he was lovely in the film. If you could silo him out, great. Otherwise, I say don't waste your time. It goes nowhere. It's ridiculous, and it's just bad script, bad direction, and a performer who isn't able to pull off what the story tells, which is
mm,
the cardinal sin of anything. Now my other no was Mr. Harrigan's Phone. This is the new Stephen King thing, and it really is this very bizarre movie because it's almost like he was writing this really beautiful story and I was totally into it, about this young boy whose mother dies young and this older gentleman who hires him to come read to him, and they discuss life together, and the older gentleman is Donald Sutherland, and if this isn't his last film, it's clear that it's going to be one of his last films because he's getting on. And he
mm,
does a lovely job in it, and the relationship between the boy and the older guy really, I think, beautifully done, beautifully directed. So why is this in the nope category? Because you reach a point in the film where Stephen King went, oh right, you need me to be Stephen King. What can I do to this to make it creepy and weird and have you at the edge of your seat? But he just phoned it in. It didn't
mm,
make
mm,
any sense at all, and you were left going, "But what? But why? But how, what? What are we
mhm,
say?" Like it didn't even make sense. And it's almost like
mhm,
everybody went, "Ah, it's Stephen King, nobody will notice. Nobody will care, nobody will." And it literally, like, the whole movie just kind of collapses in on itself and goes, like, on a bus to nowhere. So
mm,
tragically, after the full first half of the movie, they laid such good brickwork for something really stupendous, and then it was just stupid. It was just
mm.
stupid and superfluous. So I'm saying, don't waste your time, which is too bad. It could have been really good.
Yeah,
But those are
yeah.
my notes. Shall
Those
we
are your
move
notes.
on to?
Well, let's do it to the meh category.
Yes. Tell us
Here's
your
my
meh.
my
Yeah.
meh category. And again, not this is they're not a nope. They are definitely not a nope, but it's just like, okay, the one I liked, I mean, the one I watched was Do Revenge, and I did enjoy it, but it was also kind of forgettable in a way. It was an homage definitely to Mean Girls, Heathers, Clueless, and if you've never seen Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, you should. This film kind of borrows a bit from that. So we focus on Drea Torres, played by Camila Mendez, who's the queen bee, but she's not without her vulnerability. She's a Latino scholarship student at a very wealthy prep school. She's smart and ambitious, but she's insecure about her status. And as a result, she makes the monumental mistake of sending a sexy video to her very popular boyfriend, which it goes viral, of course. And the brilliant thing is her popular boyfriend acts like he's an ally, and he creates a group to support women who this has happened to, and he and his friends are actually just creepy misogynist high school boys. So that was kind of an interesting little twist on that. And now enter Eleanor, played by Maya Hawke, a new student who's awkward and she's an outsider, and she's still stinging from a long ago summer camp trauma. And the two pair up and decide to do revenge. So they each target the other person's perpetrator. And that way they'll be perfectly alibied when they take them down. And it involves a makeover scene, because we got to have a makeover scene. Love those. It involves some comeuppance for those who deserve it, and then also some comeuppance for those who don't. And I kept trying to figure out which of these two girls was JD, the character that Christian Slater played in Heathers. And I liked that I was unable to figure that out. And then I liked that they cast Sarah Michelle Gellar as the principal, of the school, kind of a nod to Buffy. But ultimately, it didn't outshine the movies that it was doing homage to. But I wouldn't say don't watch it, but I don't feel compelled to rewatch it, where I will rewatch Heathers for sure. So that was a meh. And then, keeping with the Halloween theme, I found this on Hulu, and it's called Bite Sized Halloween. And it's three seasons series of short films that are like no longer than 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Some of them go up to about 8 minutes or so. So there's like 28 of them or something in the first season. And I skipped around. I didn't watch all 3 seasons. But it could be kind of a fun thing to have on when you're, handing out candy or whatever. Some of the little vignettes were successful and some were not. And I think the more successful ones were like a little miniature Twilight Zone episode, and I was like, oh, that's good. But there were a lot that I'm like, okay, I guess that happened, kind of thing. So, and it was quirky. And I don't know. I mean, depends on your kid. I feel like there's some things that your kid could watch, but some of them I was like, ooh, so it was weird. It was an odd collection, but Halloween, right? So
I love
that
that.
was my Halloween.
I love that. I'm going to advance. I don't know if it's going to work for me. I don't know why it's not working for me, Traven.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there we go.
There
Okay,
we
so
go.
my meta category, and both of these things, there are things about them that I quite liked, but in the end, there are things about them that aren't getting it done for me. So I had started watching The Bear a couple of months ago, and I liked the first episode, but for whatever reason, we just didn't come back to it. And then, as many of you know, I was down with COVID, and I needed things to watch. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to revisit that because I've heard good things about it, and I'm going to watch it. And I love some of the actors that are in it, and there was some deep character work in it that I just thought, and I enjoyed the cooking aspect of it, that I'm going to watch it. But I got to be honest that I felt like, of course, the arc of this series, that it just lost steam, that they didn't know where they wanted to go with it, and ultimately they drove it right into the ditch. That the one leading woman character that I just loved in the first couple of episodes, it was like they didn't know where to go with her, and I felt that a lot of her scenes had I don't know whether it was just poorly directed or whether they were trying to have this improvisational feel to it. But I love Diane Keaton, but I hate it when a director lets Diane Keaton just run. Because Diane Keaton loves to do that thing where she's like, "Oh, well, I mean, I just, and I hate that. I hate that. I mean, we do a little bit of that in life, but when you're watching a film, you're seeing a condensed moment, and if it's half the movie as well, I mean, it takes up space in the movie. And this young woman, I feel like somebody just let her go to that space too. And when we see Diane Keaton with a director who understands how to use Diane Keaton, you don't see any of that.
Mhm.
And Diane Keaton like is firing on all pistons, and she's a brilliant actress. So to me, when I see that, I go, oh, director didn't show up that day. And I felt like this sort of faltered, and that ultimately where the series ended, I felt like it, talk about Deus ex machina, that all these things that I was sort of waiting, like, how is this ever going to be better? How is this ever going to be? And how they got us there had to be the stupidest plot twist that I was so angry. I was like, you know
Mm.
what? I'm not what? No. It was almost as bad as Mr. Harrigan's Phone, and I was offended by it, and so that's why it went on the meh list. There's some good
Mm.
work in it, but not for me.
Yeah.
And then The Good Fight, this is season 6 has finally come out, and this was the thing that I was looking forward to on last month's, and I couldn't wait to watch it. I'm not done with the season, so I don't know what's going to happen, but I can tell you that I'm, 6, 7 episodes in, and if you don't watch this show, this was a spin-off of The Good Wife, and which was on regular network television and was a pretty popular show. And Christine Baranski, her character as Diane Lockhart, it was so good that they wanted to make sure that there was a spin-off, that we could see her. She is a very liberal attorney who's fighting for people's rights and women's rights. And I love that in this series she falls in love. Her leading man is played by Gary Cole, and he
Oh.
plays as right wing.
Mm.
He works for the NRA. He is like
Mhm.
totally right wing. She is the most Democratic person. He is the most Republican, and they are mad, white hot in love with each other. And it just makes me so happy. It
Mhm.
like, it's that James Carville, and I can't think what his wife's name is,
Oh,
which is you
I
know who I'm
wanna say
talking
Margaret
about?
Atwood, but that's probably
Yes.
wrong. It's
No,
the actress.
I think you're at least mostly right.
Is it
No, no,
Moira?
no, but it's something like that.
Something like
But
that.
I yes, but it's it gives me hope for our world when I get to see people like that. And that's just one slice of the story. They show things that are loosely based on real things that are happening in the world. And there's a lot of social justice in it. And it's a very thought provoking show for me. And I don't know whether it was, I think it was season 3 that they did, that it had this sort of Dallas throwback thing where Diane comes into work one day, and it's this thing where it's an alternative reality where Trump didn't win the election and Hillary is president. And
Ah.
and you go through this thing and they don't make it all hearts and flowers and roses.
Mhm.
And in the kerfuffle of it, the Me Too movement was lost because Hillary was president. There was no need for the Me Too movement, or so everybody said, right?
Right.
Um, so, and it was this season where I sat on the edge of my seat as they were all these things. It was so thought provoking, and it was kind of amazing. And then eventually she wakes up and
Mm.
realizes, okay, the reality is that Hillary didn't win, but she has a different appreciation for the fact that things happen and you deal with them. So
Mhm.
we left the last season with this cliffhanger, and we've come back to this season, and the cliffhanger is completely gone, and everything is a little weird. Everything is a little bit off. You don't know why they are where they are. They have new partners, and you find yourself going, is this another dream sequence or not? And there's all these weird things that happen, and I'm 6 episodes in and waiting for them to reveal that it is yet another dream sequence. And I think the point is to torture us, wondering, is it a dream sequence, or are we ever going to hear how we got here? I just am not liking it. It feels like a
Yeah.
waste of my time. It feels like it's not true to the series, and I feel like I'm being toyed with. And
Yeah.
as a viewer, I'm not into that. Maybe
Mm.
for a few, like an hour, but 6
Right.
episodes in, and I love
Mm.
all the actors on this, and I'm so disappointed because I think this is the last season, and I'm like, "Hapata meh, meh."
Yeah.
But there are
Meh.
still some really good stuff in it. I don't wanna
Yeah.
discredit that it is a good show. Okay.
It is. It is.
All right.
All right.
Moving
Let's
on
get
to the
let's
wow.
get to the wows.
Yeah.
What Well, I was talking about true crime earlier,
Mhm.
and the reason I have Dahmer on my wow list is not because of Jeffrey Dahmer, but because of the conversations that are happening around this series that I think are really super important. If you're not familiar with Dahmer, he was a serial killer in the 70s and early 90s through the early 90s in Milwaukee, who murdered, dismembered, and ate some of his victims. Um, I'd heard also in the news that some of the victims' families were not very happy about the dramatization of their personal pain and trauma. And that's something I definitely wrestle with my fascination with true crime. I don't like sensationalizing serial killers and giving them catchy comic book villain names. But I also don't want the families to be hurt again. But I feel like these stories are important for us to learn from, to prevent, to hopefully catch whoever's out there. Now, Dahmer is played by Evan Peters, and he nails that disconnected, socially awkward Dahmer and his Milwaukee accent. However, the show reaches an amazing heights, in my opinion, with the performance of Niecy Nash as Dahmer's neighbor, Glenda Cleveland. The first episode features Sean Brown, an actor Sean Brown, playing a victim who escapes Dahmer and leads police to Dahmer's arrest. And that first episode was riveting. And he runs for help. And for the moment where he comes across a patrol car, of course they make him raise his hands and get on his knees because he's African American. And I was just like, oh, watching it. And then Niecy Nash's his response when the officers finally discover what's going on and this house of horrors that is his apartment is it's amazing. And I think we need to have this conversation about portraying real life trauma. And these families were not contacted about the
Mm.
production, which I think is a mistake. And I think some felt the portrayal was really inaccurate, and then some felt it was too accurate, and it was traumatizing for that reason. So I feel like that's a big thing that we need to talk about. And whoever's making these, please do your due diligence. And then I'm somebody who knows more than I should about serial killers, but I did not know some of these very upsetting details. I didn't know, like in the other cases I've read, it's always, oh, we're trying to find him and we know all these murders are happening and we need to figure out what's going on. I mean, because, the Green River Killer, Ted Bundy, they knew, the Golden State Killer, they knew these things were happening. They were connecting them. And it was about trying to figure out how do you solve this puzzle when the victims are random, and that makes it very difficult. Um, that's what I'm interested in. And how do you prevent it? But here's the thing: nobody was even looking for Dahmer. Nobody was looking for him, and they came across him by accident. Like I said, the victim escaped, and the reason for the disinterest: the victims were mostly gay men of color,
Mhm.
and that is something we need to talk about. And I
Mhm.
think true crime is trying to be more aware of that as a genre, in terms of, like Dateline just did something about the missing indigenous women, and how they've got a higher rate of being murdered and disappearing. And it's
Mhm.
like, yes, we need to focus on that. It can't be that there are parts of our society that are disposable, and that's an important conversation to have. And then Dahmer's neighbor complained about him multiple times. She was even present when another of his victims, a 14-year-old boy
Mm.
named Conorak, bless his heart, he escaped. The police are called, but who do they believe? Not Dahmer's African American neighbors. They believe Dahmer.
Mm.
And the boy is returned to his apartment.
Mm.
And so Dahmer uses his whiteness and the homophobia of the police department to his advantage. And it's not even that hard. That's the thing. It wasn't even that hard what he was able to do. And that's another thing we need to talk about. So that's why it's in my wow category. I'm fascinated by all of this, but I just know we just need to do better. And law enforcement has to, has to be more educated. And like actually the recent case with Gabby Petito, she was a gal that went missing and then it turned out her fiance had killed her. And there was a traffic stop that could have saved her life, but the cops sided with the guy,
Mhm.
and I think part of that was their bias, and we need to be aware of our biases and do better. So that's why it's in my wow category. It also has Richard Jenkins is in it, uh, Penelope Ann Miller, and Molly Ringwald. I mean, it's just like an odd cast, but ultimately, it was most successful when it was not focusing on him and it was focusing on the families. So
Mm.
that's why it's in my wow category. But Dairy Girls, for the
Mm.
opposite end of the spectrum, away from the serial killers, but going to Northern Ireland during the Troubles. And
Mm.
if you have not watched this series, you must watch this series. You may have to put on subtitles because they do have very thick accents, but it's hilarious. And I cried at the end of this series, and I did not expect to cry. It's a
Mm.
coming of age story about these teens who live in Derry, which is called Londonderry, for depending on your political persuasion. And it was delightful and touching. And a lot of times, what was going on with the Troubles was not even as important as, oh, will the guy like me? And all the real life is happening all the time. And I read articles about Lisa McGee, who is the creator of this, and she grew up in Derry. This is semi-autobiographical for her. And she said, yeah, I didn't think it was weird until I moved to London and I started telling people these stories, and everybody's jaw would drop, like, what? You lived through what? Barricades, massacres. I mean, it's incredible. And the thing I loved was that they showed footage of the final acknowledgement of, back, I think it was 2012, when they finally acknowledged that the 1974, I think, or 72 Bloody Sunday, where they massacred a bunch of people, that it actually was a massacre, because it had been presented as, oh no, the British Army was, being, snipers and Molotov cocktails and whatnot. And they did a deep investigation and determined that no, it was actually a massacre. And having that publicly acknowledged, get choked up now, was a beautiful thing. And I love that she put that in there. And one of the articles I read about Lisa McGee was that she talked to the families that were involved in that particular massacre, and basically got their thumbs up of, like, are you okay with me showing kind of the apology for this?
Mhm.
And they were okay with it. So I just delighted with this series, and I highly recommend it. I'll watch it all over again.
Well, I happen to agree with you
Mhm.
because it's on my wow list too. I had watched the first two seasons of it when season two came out. I discovered
Mhm.
season one like right as they were advertising season two, and thought it was hilarious, and had to call one of my friends who I knew would find it hilarious, and we were watching it together. And I absolutely had to watch it with the subtitles, but I think it's some of the best writing and direction that, everybody always talks about His Girl Friday, that how the direction and the writing of it and how clever and whatever. And I think Dairy Girls puts it to shame. It's so fast paced, and to see, and to get everybody's stories in the way that it does is hilarious. It's just beautifully done. It's like a really good dance.
Mhm.
And I was surprised that we were going to see a season three. It sort of, all of a sudden, when I was seeing it everywhere, I was like, why is Dairy Girls in the top 10 on Netflix? It's been out forever. Like, what happened that everybody's watching it again? Because for those of you who are Bridgerton fans, one of the girl who, I can't remember what the character's name is in Bridgerton, but the one of the girls also plays one of the leading roles in Bridgerton, the one
Mhm.
who's actually writing the the thing that makes everything happen in Bridgerton.
Mhm.
So, and it's the opposite end of who, she's playing a character that's vastly different from her. But then when I realized, oh no, it's that they have a new season, I gotta say I was a little like scratching my head going, really? Because some of these girls who are playing 17-year-olds are turning like 29 and 30. And I thought, are they really going to be able to pull that off? And I gotta say, and this is harsh, but I'm going to say this: they didn't always. You had to suspend disbelief a little bit and go, okay, I believe that they're 17-year-olds. But it was worth it because it is this wonderful dance of seeing the juxtaposition of what's happening in their world and how they are translating that into the minutia of being a teenager is absolutely brilliant and great writing. When I was in high school, in my final year of high school, it was during when there were the hostages in Iraq.
Mm,
I'm sorry, I'm
mm.
not politically
You're right.
literate, but
You're right.
every single day that I was in high school, the news was on, and you saw someone in a blindfold, and it had a thing that said day 45, day 55, and I feel like it shaped all of us who we ended up being as we went to college, because it was this thing about you could be in a foreign country and you could be taken hostage for days on end and not immediately be sent home. And I think that changed us. And to see how an ongoing conflict in Northern Ireland was dealt with by these young people who were trying to, listen to their punk and new wave music, uh, and finding both the poignancy and the humor of it, I thought was absolutely brilliant. I will say that I did not like the last episode.
Oh,
I was not having it. It did not make me happy. I know everybody else loved it, but I did not love it. I'm just going to say. And I know I can hear the shock in your voice, Moira, but I was not in tears. I was banging my fist on the table going, no, because I felt like there was a stronger play, but it
mm,
was cute. Um, but also in my wow category, if you have not watched The Empress,
I have not.
oh, oh, oh,
Mm.
oh, 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 oh. This is a German um, miniseries, which I believe has already been greenlit for season 2, and it's probably the best thing I've seen in a year.
Wow.
It's so good. Like the acting in it, the script, it's based on, I mean, I guess, I don't even know if I have to say loosely, it's based on historical fact in a time period where things were changing in Germany. And I'm learning so much because it's a time in Germany when I wasn't aware of everything that was happening, but it's absolutely stunningly beautiful and amazing. The costumes, it's like Bridgerton, but less fluff and more substance.
Mm,
And it's so good. It's just delicious, every bit of it. And the way it ends, I'm always talking about, did we land the plane correctly? And we
mm,
can we can agree or disagree, but I don't think the plane landed correctly with Dairy Girls.
mm.
Whatever. But they land the plane with the end of season 1 with the Empress. So I am literally going to sit and count the days until I can see season 2. It is so amazing and I think empowering for women, and beautifully shot. They must have spent so much money. It is stunning,
Mm.
and the acting is beautiful, the directing is beautiful. It's good stuff, really good stuff. Highly, highly recommend. And then the last thing in my wow category that I am just over the moon about and can't let go of is Welcome to Wrexham. If you know
Mm.
the story behind this, I got to say that I've always been a bit of a Ryan Reynolds fan. I'll watch any movie with Ryan Reynolds. I didn't think that he walked on water, but I think he's engaging whenever he's doing whatever, his sort of sarcastic kind of humor. I almost love every movie that he's ever been in. There are a couple of exceptions. Um, and I had never seen an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but Rob McKenney, and I slaughtered his name just now, but he made a decision that sports were such a big part of his life. He's originally from Philadelphia, and he wanted to know what it would take to buy a sports team. And he found that there is like one of the oldest soccer teams in existence in Wrexham, which is in Wales, and
Oh,
that this team was about to lose everything. because financially they were in such tough shape. And he said, I want to buy this team. And he started to go down that rabbit hole, and he realized that as a TV star, he didn't have enough money. He says on all these interviews, I had TV money, and I realized that not only did I need TV money, but I needed mega superstar, big Marvel superhero, and own a gin company and a telecommunications company money to be able to earn. So he went to Ryan Reynolds and said, how about you come in with me and we buy this team? And originally Ryan Reynolds was like, what is wrong with you? What are you thinking? But what this is, season 1, and it's all out now as of, I think, the other day, Welcome to Wrexham documents everything that happens as they buy the team and go through their first season as owners of this team. And what's amazing is that they say from the beginning, we're doing this for lots of different reasons, but it isn't just about the team. It's not just about the game. There is a town that its
Yeah.
industry is this, and the town is depressed and folding in on itself, and we want to make this town come back alive. It's like a social experiment. It is so good. There's 16 episodes in season 1. They're short episodes, and they're not all like Emmy award winning, but there are a couple that are. And each one has a different take. Like sometimes they're explaining soccer to you, but there is one episode where they just focus on why men love sports, and that it's rooted in this social experiment, that it's because of the relationship that it helped them to connect to other men, usually their father, sometimes
Usually their
their
fathers,
uncle.
yeah.
And it is some of the best, most exciting television I think you'll see. They do good storytelling throughout, where you meet people in the community and you see how rooting for a team or working for a team and how it changes their lives, to the point where tomorrow I'm subscribing to ESPN2 so that I can watch Wrexham play tomorrow.
You can
Now,
bundle it. You can bundle it with Disney Plus and Hulu.
well, I already have Disney Plus and Hulu, so I might already have it. But I don't watch sports. I'm not a sports person, and I certainly don't watch soccer. And this, I'm so into it. I got to watch. They're playing tomorrow. So
Fabulous.
well, by the time you guys watch it, they'll have already played. But it is so good, and I now want Ryan Reynolds to run for president. I keep waffling back and forth. I'm like, no, maybe I want Rob to run for president and Ryan to just consult, or maybe it's the other way. Ryan needs to run for president and Rob is like his vice president. I don't know. But these two men and what they have done, and how I'm sure it's all, they make it look a certain way, but it's funny, it's witty, and they're on the right side of things. And it fills me with so much hope what they have done for this community. It's so good, you guys. It's so good. It's delightful. So that's how I feel about that.
Well,
Oh,
I
I
got
didn't, did I
new
talk about
stuff to add to my list for sure.
Yes.
That's
Oh my
fabulous.
gosh, you got to watch The Empress. But I'm telling you, I think you could sit down and watch Welcome to Wrexham with the guys in your life, and everybody will get something different of it. But I'm totally devoted to those two men now. I wanted to get a Wrexham shirt to wear to do on the show, but I am going to get a Wrexham shirt because I just love it so much. I'm a hardcore fan now. Anyway, that's how I feel about that. Ask me how I really feel. We're getting down to time. Okay, so what are you looking forward to?
Looking forward to Interview with the Vampire. This was, I read the books back in the day, loved the books. I was one of those people that was furious that Tom Cruise had been cast as Lestat, and then sort of warmed to him and thought, okay, well, he really went for it and that's fine. But I gotta tell you, I watched 2 episodes actually. I started it and I am loving the Sam Reed, I think his name is. Oh my God. I mean, it's just, I love it. It's very sensual. It's all, right now we're all in New Orleans, and they've changed the series a bit. So people that are fans of the book, it's not the book exactly, but so I'm looking forward to, and I found out, because I thought I was going to have to subscribe to AMC Plus, but I'm able to watch it on my Dish Network video on demand for free. So, and with the occasional commercial, but not too bad. So, because I'm like, I already have too many streaming things. I don't need another streaming thing. So, anyway, so that's what I'm looking forward to. In keeping with my Halloween theme, Interview with the Vampire. How about
Uh,
you?
and so I am looking forward to I sometimes I like a shorter film, and
Mm.
I came across this as I was looking at things that are about to come out. And it's a movie called Then Barbara Met Alan, and it's being hailed as one of the most inclusive films that's ever been made. The cast is very diverse in terms of their abilities, and that it's a love story about a woman in a wheelchair who meets a guy who's not in a wheelchair, and apparently mayhem ensues. And I don't know much more about it than that, but you had me at diverse cast, right? And because I wanna see, I just feel like, this is where Hollywood needs to go, and Hollywood needs to see that this can be done, and that it can be done really beautifully and wonderfully. So I'm really excited that, I think it comes out in a couple of days on Netflix. It was something that was on the BBC, and I'm super looking forward to it.
Oh,
Between
that's
watching Welcome to Wrexham and Dairy Girls, all I want is stuff where it's a British, Welsh, Scottish, or even with the Empress German accent. I've been walking around speaking in all these different accents, so that's what I'm looking forward to. And then in
fabulous.
our rewind category,
Oh, yes. Well, in keeping with my theme, one a movie that if I come across it when I'm channel flipping, I'll watch it, is Silence of the Lambs. It was at the time when it was released in the theaters in '91. We'd never seen anything like this, really. I mean, there had been, I mean, and really, it was because there was a female FBI agent. It was always the guy and the tough guy, blah blah blah. But having Jodie Foster be she was just so perfect for that part, and you can see the wheels turning in her head, and having the scenes between her and, of course, the fabulous Anthony Hopkins as supervillain Hannibal Lecter. There it just unnerving. I mean, the sound design is great in those scenes. There's this low frequency rumble that just puts you on edge. And the thing I loved about this too, even when I had watched it originally, was she saw things her fellow male agents did not see because she was looking at it. And I think that that's not a nice to have in law enforcement or in the world in general. It's a need to have, because you need to have, like, we talk about diversity because of our kiddos and whatnot, but you need to have these other perspectives. And that's one of the reasons I love this. And it was thrilling to show this to my daughter and watch her be on the edge of her seat. I was basically watching her watch the last sequence of the film, because she was just like, oh no, and fabulous film. So that's, if you
one,
can, take it, if you can take the stress, it's a good one.
yeah.
And I love the one you picked.
Well, it's interesting because I've never been able. I've seen parts of Silence of the Lambs, but I know I can't take it. I know that I can't. Like I would be up for weeks.
Mm.
Um, but I've seen parts of it, so that I can appreciate what an amazing film and the performances and stuff. But I can't do it. And it's interesting to me that I have that thing you do on the list, because I like to be transported someplace else when I'm watching a film, and it doesn't mean that you can't take me someplace place gritty. You can, but there are times when I need comfort. And
Hmm.
I'm a real connoisseur of Christmas movies, and there are Christmas movies that I love and that I'll watch over and over and over again. There's only one non-Christmas movie that I will watch whenever it's on. If I'm walking by, that's it for the day. I'm sitting and watching it, and that's That Thing You Do. And
Hmm.
I thought for a lot of years that I was just weird and odd and that I was the only person, but the truth of the matter is there is a cult of us that get it. That
Hmm.
I love that Tom Hanks wrote this movie after coming off of Philadelphia when he was doing Apollo 13, and during his breaks he was writing this thing about this idyllic time in our past, and what it was like to be a part of a band in the Beatles era, in the early Beatles era, and what it was like to be perhaps a one-hit wonder.
Uh-huh.
And he wrote the film, he directed the film, he was very heavily involved in the casting, and as you know, I mean, I just love everybody in it, but I've always had a big soft spot for Jonathan Sheck. And then I got to meet him at the Taka Ante Up just a couple of weeks ago, and it was a big bucket list moment for me. And I
Oh, I'm
kind
so
of,
glad.
it was like I'm still not speaking to Lisa, and you can tell her because Lisa knew that it was a big thing for me. And so when he walked up to me, he said, "I hear you have a crush on me." And I was like, "What?" And I literally, like, if you watch the video, I'm like, "What?" Like, it was like I didn't hear him, and he said, "I hear you have a crush on me." And it was like, if you watch it, it's like my brain shorts out for a full, like, maybe 10, 20 seconds, and I'm like, and then he started singing to me, and I was like, "No, no, no, you can't do that." Equally because I didn't wanna get slapped with a rights thing, but also because I was gonna fall apart. And I was like, "No, no, no, you mustn't do that to me." And it sort of reminded me of when Rosie O'Donnell finally got to meet Tom Cruise, if you ever
Oh,
watched
yeah.
that episode,
Yes, I
and she
did.
was like, "My Tommy." And
Yeah.
and I just was having a real hard time, and I said, "No, no, we're gonna keep it professional, we're gonna keep it locked down." And I was speaking that out loud. I didn't mean to, but I was speaking it out loud because, um, he's just so lovely in this film, and I've seen him
Yes.
do other things. He's a wonderful, talented actor, but there's so many things about this film, and I'd be scared to tell you maybe how many times I watched this film. But it is my film when, everything is a little bit low and I need something to bring me up. And it stands the test of time. During the pandemic, they because the I'm gonna get his name wrong, Andrew Schlesinger, I think, who
Mhm.
wrote most of the music that got used in the Ultimate film. Some of it was written by Tom Hanks, but and a lot of the main vocals that are actually heard was this very talented young performer,
Yeah, the
who
Fountains of Wayne, right? Wasn't,
yeah,
that the yes, uh-huh, yeah, yeah.
and and early in the pandemic, he was one of the first people to die of COVID,
And
and
you
it was
watched the thing, there was a thing about it, right?
yes,
Like a
and
yeah, I
so
watched it too.
right,
Mhm.
and so the 4 guys from that thing you do said, "We're gonna raise money, and we're gonna get together and have a reunion on Zoom, and we're gonna," because of copyright laws and whatever, that the movie would be playing in another room, and they said, "Start now, and you could be watching with us, and we're gonna talk through, everything what we remember as it happened." And Tom Hanks wasn't available to do it, but Colin Hanks, who had been a production assistant on the film, was there too. Of course, it was scheduled at a time when I needed to be in a Zoom meeting, but I will admit that I did both at the same time. Um, and I was speaking for a large portion of Zoom meeting, but I was like, and then okay. And back to the thing, and I was recording on my phone so that if I missed anything, I
Oh,
love this movie. I love the camera work in this movie. The director of photography is amazing in this movie, and it brings me to a time in my childhood that I can remember
yeah.
that I remember fondly, and it feels like the Beatles, and it's all of those things, but wrapped in a really wonderful message. I love everything about it.
Well, I have
Uh,
to tell you, in Orange, downtown Orange, Old Town, it's the
mhm.
Circle, that's where a lot of stuff was shot,
Mm,
and that's right near Chapman. And
mm.
so when my daughter started film school, she was like, "We're in that thing you do," because they had all the and it's we love that film. We love
It's a
that
great
film,
film.
and yeah, yeah, it's a good one. That's a good one. I
It
love
is a
it.
good one. Worth watching, and I wish Tom Hanks would direct more, and I wish he would write more. I know he's busy doing other things, but I think that he has more of a talent for it. The thing about it is that I think when the movie came out, it was okay. It was well received, but I went and saw it and thought it was the most amazing thing and went back and saw it like 5 more times. And I wasn't hearing everybody else talk about how great it was, but it has really stood the test of time, and it does have this enormous following of people who
Mhm.
absolutely love it. But I'm amazed at how many people didn't see it because they didn't hear good. And it's really well directed. I'm sorry
It's
if people
very
disagree with
well
me, but you're
done.
wrong.
Yeah, and I
Right?
think I think that the hotel that they stay in
Hmm.
was, the Ambassador Hotel before I think it got torn down or
Mm,
repurposed,
mm,
and so I love that. I mean, I love that it's sort of some iconic
right.
places that you can
It's
kind
great.
of maybe do with that thing you do tour.
I just loved it, and it was great to meet Jonathan, and he's the real deal.
It's
And
sweet.
he identified it as a member of our tribe, and I just think that he was delightful. And sometimes you meet people that you're like, oh, I'd love to meet them, and everybody was like, oh, I hope you're not disappointed. There was no disappointment at all. He was everything and more. And what a lovely, lovely, lovely human being. So that makes great sense to me. But great at playing a villain, at a villain that everybody falls in love with. He's
Yes,
very good
yes.
at
Well,
playing a
he's
villain.
he's alone in his principles.
Yes. Yeah. Yes,
Yes, yes.
exactly.
Traven
Exactly.
is Traven's asking you a question.
Is he?
Ask
I
Yes,
can't
he's
see
saying
that.
you wanna play the no, no, he said you wanna play the clip. Do you have the clip of Shannon talking to
Do you
Jonathan
wanna play
Shack?
it, Traven? Yeah, I mean, we're over time. Do you have time, Moira?
I do, I wanna see it.
Oh, it's I lose, like, you can watch my brain go zzz, and I literally go, like, numb. It's not great, but go ahead, play it. Let's take a look. And now we put him on the spot.
Oh,
But this
poor
but
Traven.
this is
Sorry, Traven.
Shannon making an ass
Well,
of herself.
I'm just glad they don't have footage of when I met Kristen Wiig because I kinda made a fool of
Oh,
myself
really?
because I
Oh,
love her
really?
so much. I lost my cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
I just
sometimes
lost my cool. That's all I
I
can
am
say.
famous for opening my mouth and my brain falls out, but I still speak. When I met Shamar Moore and he walked up to me and I was like, "Oh my goodness, you are one good-looking man." And he was like, "Hey now." But at least I was still speaking. I lost the ability to like form a sentence when Jonathan Sheck walked up, and I think I even say, "I'm gonna kill Lisa Ackerman." Uh, because he's like, "Oh, I hear you have a crush on me." I don't know. Are we gonna be able to play it, Traven, or
I
not?
Well, actually, I wonder if it's part of the clip,
It's
uh,
available online. You guys can
it's
go and look
available.
at it.
The Ante Up, red
Yes.
carpet stuff is available. So look
You
for
guys
Ante
can
Up
go and
for
look at it
Autism, and
and watch me
I will
make
watch it. Yeah.
make an
Oh
ass
well,
of myself.
it won't play for us, but that's okay. We've
Okay, it's
managed to
alright.
get through today with a lot of weird tech stuff, but it
Yes,
worked
we did.
out. The
And
magic
we're
of
gonna be
Traven.
yes, yay, Traven. We're gonna be back next month, and I'm gonna make sure that in my rewind, I give my best Christmas, my favorite Christmas movie, the one that I always make sure that I see. It's probably
I will
not
do
what you
this.
think.
I will do the same. I will do the
Okay.
same. And I am, in spite of all the murder and mayhem, I do like a real sappy, make me cry film.
Oh,
So yeah,
I
I will do that.
I'm all about it. Any minute now, I'm gonna switch into Hallmark mode, and you guys won't see me for a while. And I do. I make a point of watching all of the new Hallmark movies that come out every year, every single one of them. And I think this year it's like upwards of 30. So,
Oh wow. Well, did you
um,
see the one last year that Holly Robinson Pete was in?
yes, I talked to her
Yeah.
about it, interviewed her, of course. Did
That
I
was
see it once or did I see it 4 times, Moira? Yes.
uh,
No, I'm all about that. She is right now away filming her Christmas movie for this year. I also watched Holly's the year before, which was The Christmas Doctor, which made me cry so hard, I was screaming at the television set.
oh, okay
Um,
then.
yeah, and I talked with her about that on the red carpet at the Ante Up for Autism,
Ah,
because she was
fabulous.
also there, and she is a lovely human being.
She's the lovely person. How
She really is.
fabulous.
Yeah,
All right.
an
Well, we
amazing one.
did it.
Alright, we did
Woo!
it. We did it, and thank you guys for sticking with us. Don't forget tomorrow we're back with Stories from the Spectrum, and we'll be back with Moira next month in November. If there's something you want us to review, write and tell us. If there's something you want us to put on the rewind list, let us know. Moira, thank you so much. I so enjoy this time.
Me too. Such a treat. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, you take care. Everybody
Right.
home, hug for you and a hug for your kiddos. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.